Good morning again. This is Amber, one of the dietitians, and we are so excited to have our January themed class today called Meal Prepping. We've got meal prep is the new fast food, and we're just looking forward to enjoying this time together. We're going to head over to Jen. Just remember, keep your microphones muted. And if you want video on, that's awesome. Just we can all see you. And then to use the chat function or the raise your hand to speak. All right, we're going to send it over to Jen.
All right, you guys, everyone hear me okay? Excellent. So, hey there. Welcome to January Bariatric Cooking class. So glad you could join us today. And today is, as Amber said, our new fast food kind of class. What we want to do is really focus on some recipes that are easy to make ahead, to be able to refrigerate or freeze, and be able to use as a gift to your future self, right? I make it once and I can eat off of it, hopefully over the next several days or maybe even few weeks if it's something that you can freeze. So we have a few different recipes. It's not going to be anything mind-blowing. They're all just kind of nice, good, basic recipes, but we help to make adjustments and we have some ideas that hopefully help you feel like it's something you can make, divvy out, and then set aside for the future. So what we're going to start with today is our on-the-go egg bites. I know a lot of people will do this kind of thing. I like to call them omelet cupcakes. They can be egg bites, something kind of like the sous vide eggs, if you've seen those at Starbucks, or they sell them now at Costco, which are also really good and very convenient, but they are a little spendy. So if you want to do something that you can put together yourself, save a few dollars, especially if you've got a little bit of time, these are really pretty easy. And what we've done here is we've pre-filled some of our little, I'm going to say tins, because I've got a cute little silicone one in the shape of hearts right there, if you're able to see. And you can see that on the picture for the recipe. They're in little heart shapes. I know it's not February, but I had them and they're fun. So we're using them. So that's what we've got here. We already pre-cooked the sausage. And so that's something you can use in this. And then again, you can freeze sections of that for the next time you're going to make these or something else. We already then added in our little bit of cheese, our chopped green onion. We've got just a tiny bit of potato. I know we talk about potato, it's a starchy vegetable, but a little bit here and there is fine. And so we've chopped up just a tiny bit of some baked red potato and just put some tiny little pieces in each of these. So just a little bit for some fun, if you happen to like that. And so you can, of course, really build these however you want. You can pick a different meat. You can pick a different cheese. You could put in some red pepper, so you can kind of mushroom, however you want to put these together, right? It can kind of be a kitchen sink sort of a deal. Great way to use up any vegetables or anything like that you have sitting around. So we pre-filled all of these. And then what we're going to do is we're going to make our batter. And what we've got here is 8 eggs. If I'm remembering correctly, yes. So we've got our 8 eggs, and I have it in our little blender cup here because we're going to blend this. Why? Because we're also going to put in some cottage cheese. This is going to add some flavor, some savoriness to it, some kind of creaminess, some protein, right? We're always talking about the protein. So we're going to toss this in here. You don't have to blend it. If you don't mind cottage cheese chunks in your little egg bites, then you don't have to blend. That's totally fine. But we're going to blend it. I like my eggs a little smoother that way. And then we got some salt and some pepper there. So easy peasy, breezy, lemon squeezy, however they say it. I think over in England, we're just going to blend this up really quick. So hopefully it's not too loud in your ears. And we've got our NutriBullet. This is the magic from the Magic Bullet. If you guys have used this is a nice handy dandy little blender. I've had mine for a long time. This is the one that's just here in the kitchen, but I've had one of these for years. They are super quick, super handy, especially if you're not blending something really big. Really, really nice. And then blender cleaning trick, if you don't know this, put water and soap, put it together, blend it up, and you have just cleaned the inside of your blender. You're welcome. So We're going to set that aside, and I'm just going to take this and we're just going to pour it in our little containers here. Our little containers, our little muffin cups. So just to the top, I'm kind of overfilling a little bit. I'm not pouring so great from this thing, but that's all right. Might be a smidgen messy, but they're going to taste good. How do I know that? Because we made them before. So I know they taste good. Boom. Even Shirley's dad approved, and that's saying something. So obviously we are successful. Now, if you're using a regular muffin tray, you can just go ahead and pop that into the oven because we have the silicone, and you could even do this with the regular tray as well. In order to keep the bottoms of these egg bites from getting brown and a little bready or a little crunchy, if you don't like that, I'm going to put this into the oven, and then I'm going to pour just a little bit of water into the tray, just a little something, kind of like if you were doing a custard, just to kind of insulate it a little bit so it cooks a little bit more evenly. So I'm going to go ahead and stick this in very carefully so I don't spill my egg bites. I'm just going to pour my water in. There we go. As they say in Chicago, bada bing, bada boom, forget about it. So I'm going to set my timer probably for 20 minutes. We'll see how they are. If you were making smaller ones, you could do 15. These are probably going to need at least 20 minutes. So I'm going to set a timer on the microwave. And then we're going to go ahead and take a really quick break. And we'll go ahead and get back to it. So I'll send it over to Amber. I'll get set up for our next recipe. And then we'll get going.
Okay, everybody, go ahead and turn the camera off. And can you mute? Did you mute it? Okay, you muted it. Awesome. Sorry about that. Okay, so just wanted to give you guys a couple announcements while we're taking a quick break. As far as the cooking classes, right? You need to make sure that you sign up and you for the email invite each time so that you can get the recipes and you can attend the class live and all of that. So to check your My Chart to make sure you're still signed up for future classes. Our next class will be, 2 days after our support group. It'll be Friday, February 16th from 11 to 12. And if you can't make it, but you sign up, this is what I tell all my patients, because a lot of people work and they're like, oh, I want to go. We record each one of these classes. So sometimes, the sound so far sounds pretty good to me. So I don't think we're having an issue. We had to pivot a little bit today, but we record them on St. Luke's YouTube, and I will tell you towards the end of the class how to get those videos. And then then you'll have the recipes if you sign up for the class emailed to you. All right. And then these changes will be reflected under your appointments in your My Chart. So to be sure to look for the most current dates and times. We always try to inform you of upcoming changes and things like that. I think we are ready to go back to the kitchen. Are we ready? Awesome. Okay.
Okay, we are ready. Well, my voice is ready. All right, awesome. We are back. So the next recipe that we're gonna pre-bake and put together is a little mini meatloaf or meatloaf bites, meatloaf cupcakes, meatloaf muffins, whatever you want to call them. And this again can be another somewhat versatile option. What we put together, of course, is a lower sugar version that doesn't have the ketchup or the barbecue sauce, although you could put that in as long as you got a lower sugar version for yourself. And that's really entirely up to you. I grew up with not great memories of tomato meatloaf, ketchup meatloaf, so I don't like it. So we're doing something that's not tomatoey today. Again, switch it up if you want to. But this is going to be a little bit more savory. We've got some garlic. We got a couple different options here that are going to give it that stick togetherness that you need with a meatloaf. So what I have in here is I've got 1 pound of beef. Of course, you can choose a different meat if you prefer. You can do some ground turkey, some ground chicken, even a mix of half and half of ground turkey and ground pork, or ground beef and ground pork. So, you can kind of go either way there. But I've got our pound of meat in here, a pound of ground beef, and then I just went ahead and tossed in some cheese. It can be Parmesan, it can be Monterey, it can be cheddar. Again, you can kind of pick and choose. If you wanted to go with something a little bit more Mediterranean or Greek style, I would put feta in here, and I would chop up a few black olives or Kalamata olives and put that in here. Maybe some of the seasoning, so some of your Greek seasoning or some of your oregano, thyme, of course, garlic, right? And stick those in here. So that could be a way of just switching the theme and the flavor profile a little bit, and that makes it really, really good. And then if you're really feeling zingy about something like that, you're feeling a little spicy about it, you can actually get yourself some ground lamb, which is more expensive, but it tastes really good when you're doing more of that Greek style. And then, of course, speaking of spicy, you can go hot, right? You can get maybe a little bit of chorizo or something with a little kick in here. If you know that your body can handle it, if you're at a place where you already know that, you can do certainly something like that. So, but today we're going to do a little bit more of that garlicky, savory kind of option. So I've got my meat and my cheese in here already, and really easy peasy. We're just going to start putting all of these ingredients together. We're going to stir it up, incorporate it really well. So what I've got here, I've got some pork rind breadcrumbs. So if you recall here recently, we've been using these pork brand, but they're pork rind breadcrumbs. So you can always get pork rinds and crush them up yourself. That's just easier. So I actually put this on a salad last night instead of croutons. It was really good. So this is a great way to have that breadcrumb substitute. So that's what we have instead of the bread or the crackers or whatever you might typically put into a meatloaf to help with that binding and such. So I've got a half cup of that. Of course, I have some of our salt and pepper. So I'm just going to put that in here for us. I've got to have some onion. Onion is so good for you. So I've got my onion in here as well as my garlic. So we've got about a half cup of onion and a clove of garlic, and we're just going to toss that in. Both onion and garlic are really good for health, really good for immune health. Just generally very, very good additions whenever you can add them in. And then we're going to have a little bit of egg, right? One beaten egg. That is also going to help hold things together here for us. Another vegetable choice, in our case, we're going to go ahead and do some orange pepper. If you like a different one, we could do green pepper, we could do a red pepper. This could be the mushrooms, it could be the olives, whatever you like. You go ahead and toss that in. So again, a little kitchen sinkish there. And then we're going to go ahead and add in some Worcestershire sauce. This could be Worcestershire. This could be soy sauce. This could be teriyaki, right? So you could have something, again, with a little bit more of that umami. You could do coconut aminos if some of the soy things bother you. That would be a good option. And so I've got a tablespoon of the Worcestershire sauce going in here. I'm pretty sure I'm not saying that right. I try every time, not working out for me. So basically, you're just dumping it all in, and then we're going to give it a stir. If you are able to get the meat set out for yourself so that it's starting to come to room temperature, it is going to mix together a little bit easier, because you do want it to all well incorporate, right? And you could get in here with your hands. I'm just not going to. I'm going to use the spatula, and we're going to get this stirred up. And then sometimes it's going to come together well. You've got enough moisture in there. It's going to be fine. But the recipe does call for about a quarter cup of milk. And so typically I find that I end up having to use that. So we're just going to stick that in there, and that's just going to help it stick together a little bit better. You could use a milk substitute there if milk is not something that's going to work for you, if you don't tolerate milk well. It could be a milk substitute, soy milk, unsweetened almond milk. You could probably even just put a tiny trickle of some water in there just to get it to stick together a little bit. I think milk is nice though. So we got it all mixed together here pretty well. And you can bake this in a couple different ways, or with a couple different options. Really, here, I'll just show you that. So all stirred together, a really big meatball. Yeah. What I'm going to do, because this goes faster, is I'm going to use my little tin. I don't know if you're able to see that. This is like a tart tin, so really tiny little guys. It's almost like making meatballs. It's really, really nice and handy and easy. So I'm using this. You could use a standard muffin tin. You could use something like the heart one that I had. You also have something like this, that Shirley brought, which is like a whole bunch of little mini loaves, which is pretty cool. I have something like this too at home, only it's smaller. Just have, yeah, and if you're going to do something this big, of course, you'll want to multiply the recipe just to make sure there's enough. But if you've got more standard size, the recipe is likely going to work out just fine. So you've got options. One thing to consider, of course, is if it's going to be bigger, larger muffin tins or something like this, it will need a little bit of a longer cooking time because these are so small, they cook really fast. And if we're trying to get her done, we like to cook it really fast, right? So what I'm also going to do that works really well, got a rogue onion there, is I'm going to use my cookie scoop. This is about the same size, looked out there, of my little tart tin, and I'm just going to do this. So if you got, again, if you got one of these, if you got a bigger one, like one of the bigger ice cream scoops that releases like this, you could use that for a larger muffin tin. But this one happens to be just perfect. And so when we put it together in this pan, yeah, we found that we only had to cook it for about 15 minutes before they were cooked through. And I thought that was really convenient. And then I thought, gosh, it's like making meatballs, only you're not rolling all of them. So you could kind of think, you know, maybe I'm going to make meatballs this way. So if you don't have a tart tin, but you like the idea of kind of that bite-sized sort of meatball option, then I think this is a great way to do it. So I just don't like rolling meat with my hands. I don't know what, does anyone else have that problem? Not that I don't mind touching meat, but I just don't like the time it takes to roll things like that. Or does anyone else have another idea that works well that you figured out for this kind of a thing? This one I think works really well, but you know, does anyone else have any thoughts on that? Because we always welcome more ideas to help each other out, for sure. I'm getting really close here to getting this all. This is so fast. There we go. Almost got her done. And then what I'll have to do with this is I'll just set it aside because our eggs are in there. But as soon as the eggs are done, this is ready to go, right? So we're just taking one out, putting another one in. We're getting her done, especially if you're going to do one of those prepping sessions like people will do over a couple hours. They'll prep a bunch and then they'll set it aside for the week or for the month, and then they're good to go. So I'm going to go ahead and set this aside. We've got about another 8 minutes or so on the eggs. And so then we'll go ahead and take those out when our timer goes off, and we'll go ahead and put these in. In the meantime, I'll go ahead and send it back to Amber, and then we'll get ready for the next recipe. So we're really cranking. We're getting them done, people. We're cooking, and then we're going to be free. All right. See you in a minute.
Okay, everyone, I'm back. That was awesome. I can't, they are so fun. I love the little mini size. Jen's so right. You can make them into a meatball easily, or they're just a perfect little bariatric size. Sometimes people might be able to eat 2 of them. Depending on where you are in your journey, it will just depend on how many you can eat at one. I've got a little slide for the mini meaty meatloaf. I'm not that great at making slides, I'll be perfectly honest. I'm doing my best with PowerPoint. So thankfully, all the awesome slides you see are already done by Maggie, who is hopefully on a plane right now. So we don't have to worry about that. So let's see. Now with the meatballs, like Jen said, you could have ground beef or turkey or pork. That's the coolest thing about it. You could even make like a Mexican theme. You can do so many different things with this particular item. Aside from it being an excellent source of protein, there's a huge variety of vegetables, and you could do different herbs and things like that. So this is an awesome addition to your menu, and we'll talk later at a different break how easily we can freeze them too. They don't just have to be meal prep for this week. You don't want to be, because you'll have so many, you'll be eating them every single day. So you want to maybe freeze them so that you can eat some later, right? And we'll talk about that on a different break. I think we're going back. She's so fast. The breaks are quick. Okay. I'm going to just turn off my PowerPoint, turn back on the camera and the sound. All right. She's back.
I'm back. All right, people. Let's move on. Let's move forward. So we've got our eggs in the oven. Probably only have about 5 or 6 minutes left. We have our meatloaf waiting in the wings, ready to go in. They're waiting their turn. So what we're going to move on to is now our vegetables. So we've got a couple protein options. Probably one of them will be used at breakfast, but you can use it really whenever you like. Odd as it sounds, I do have some folks who like to use things like meatloaf as their breakfast. So whatever floats your boat. But we're going to move on to the vegetable portion. And this recipe is nice because it's a good time of year to roast vegetables. You can get a lot of variety this way. And this is where I usually like to do my little spiel when I'm talking to patients is variety is the spice of life. And I just don't mean to keep food interesting, although that's helpful. I also mean it's good for your body. It's a great way to get in all of the different nutrients that your body is looking for. And with the case of plant foods, it's also a great way to get the variety into that gut microbiome that we are always trying to foster, right? And so we want to make sure we're considering variety. I know depending on where you're at, you might not be able to eat very much, and this might look like a huge bowl. You can always make it smaller unless you're feeding other people, but we've got multiple different vegetables in here, which is our way of feeding all the different cute little neighborhoods and bacteria down in our gut. And usually when I'm talking to patients about their constipation after surgery and trying to work through resolving that, part of the discussion is let's work on getting some fiber in, not just because of the bulk, although that is helpful, but also because that microbiome is integral part of keeping our digestive system moving through smoothly. And so we want to feed them well. And so again, even if it's only a bite or two at different meals or in between meals, you get a little something more of like a snack time, it still helps. So we always want to practice that as early in the process as we possibly can, which means as soon as you're done with your liquid diet and moving on to foods, we're starting to mix in little bits of soft vegetables here and there. And we want to begin the practice of getting those in, even though volume is nothing significant. But we're progressing, right? We're moving in that direction. So we're working on practicing what we want to do in the future. We're starting slow and small, just like our little tiny habits, everything starts tiny. So what I have here is a variety of different vegetables pre-cut. Thank you, Amber. And you can really kind of do whatever you want. So we've got a list of vegetables in the recipe. You can mix it up if you want to, but we've got some zucchini, we've got some broccoli. I think we have some pepper in here somewhere. Yep, there it is, orange pepper. It's right next to the sweet potato. What? Potato? I know, hang with me. So you can put that in, you don't have to, but we have one starchy vegetable in the mix of all of the non-starchy vegetables. So this is one example of how we can include a little bit of that, whether it's something you enjoy or you just kind of like to toss it in. But that way we get mostly non-starchy vegetable, but we still get to have a little bit of that if that is something that you enjoy or that you miss, or you just want to put in there because other family members like it as well. So we've got one sweet potato in there. And then what do I have? Zucchini. We got some red onion. It can be other onion, sweet onion, regular onion, whatever is fine. You could do cauliflower instead of broccoli. But I think these are all really, really good. So we need to dress it. So we are going to dress it first with some oil. So I've got, I think, about 3 tablespoons here of some oil. Yeah, if you need to do a little bit more, that's fine. But we definitely want to get that in there because that's what's going to help coat them all and help kind of give a little bit of that browning that we're looking for when we're roasting vegetables. We also have some Dijon mustard in here, about 1 tablespoon. That's going to add some flavor. So we're going to go ahead and pour that in there. And then you always want to have salt and pepper. Or at least salt, I think, but a little bit of salt for sure. If you want some pepper, that's fine. We've also got some garlic powder here, so a half teaspoon of garlic powder. This then has some Italian seasoning, and that, again, that's really up to you. If you have Italian seasoning, that's great. If you don't, if you have it, you can pull out some oregano, you can pull out some dried thyme, and you can just go ahead and mix that in. So, you know, again, it's a little bit of a kitchen sink kind of option. The nice thing with these recipes is it doesn't have to be perfect. It can somewhat be whatever it is that you have and that you like. And then baseline, you always want to have some oil and some salt to dress these guys, to add that flavor and that moisture and get that little bit of browning on it. And then after that, it can really be whatever you find that you enjoy. I love roasting vegetables in the wintertime, not in the summer. It's too hot. But in the wintertime, it's fantastic because once you get them all chopped up, it's super easy, kind of does itself. And they get that nice brown layer on them. It's like they're slightly caramelized and they're really, really good. I just think it's a fantastic way to have some vegetables. So we've got our assortment here. It's all, I think I got it. One other thing that we found out, by the way, that works really well, especially if you're considering trying to work a little bit of a make ahead kind of a plan. Chop up all your vegetables, put them in a big gallon Ziploc bag, pour in your oil and your mustard and your seasonings, and just kind of give it a good shake or a massage to get it all incorporated so all the pieces of the vegetables are covered. And then you can cook it right then if you want to, or you can stick it in the fridge for a couple days. So if you're going to do some of it now and then in a couple days you want to bake some more or roast some more fresh at that point, you already have it ready to go. All you got to do is pour it on the pan and stick it in the oven and you're good to go. So this is a great way. And I found we did some of that with our leftover vegetables here when we practiced all of these recipes. And I actually found that they were really good that way. They were marinated a little bit, tenderized a little bit with all of that. A fantastic way to do it. Now, I've got the Parmesan. Jen, you haven't put that in, you say. You're right, I haven't. I'm not going to mix this in. One of the things with cheese and roasting vegetables, if you mix it all together, it does have a tendency to brown or burn before the vegetables are done. It kind of depends on what kind of vegetables you're using. And we have a little bit firmer vegetables in here, which means we're going to have to cook it a little bit longer than maybe if we only had broccoli, for example, which is a little bit more tender on its own. So what's best, really, is to roast all the vegetables until they're pretty much done. Pull it out, sprinkle your cheese on top, stick it back in for just another couple minutes, and all of that cheese will melt into the vegetables. And then you can pull it out and you're good to go. And then you have this nice cheesy vegetable and not burnt cheese all stuck to the bottom of your pan. As well, little tip, parchment paper is one of your best friends. Whenever you're cooking anything, I think it's good to consider this. So for the roasted vegetables, we're going to do this. Man, I started doing this all the time. I actually got the reusable ones. So I'll use those at home if it's meat, if it's vegetables, if it's whatever. I'm putting the little reusable silicone mats on. And if you don't have that, the parchment paper is just great. And that way cleanup is so much easier and you're not getting food sticking to the pan, which sometimes is really hard to get off. And then you miss some of the good stuff. So we're going to go ahead and we're going to pour probably about half of these vegetables on this tray. You really want to go ahead and make sure that you've got 2 trays. This is a lot of vegetables. Again, if you make it smaller, you're only going to need 1. That's fine. But I'm going to go ahead and heft this baby over here onto the tray. There we go. Half-ish. Boom. We're going to spread them out. Now, when you're putting the vegetables on the tray, if they're too close together, if they're nestled together too much, if you think your vegetables are showing too much affection for each other, you need to space them out, just like teenagers. So space them out. The reason being is that if they're too close together, they're really more going to steam each other instead of roast. So this is still a pretty full pan here, if you can see it. And so these are still going to be a little steamy, but we'll get a good roast on them. You know, if you have enough time, you'll get a good roast on them. So this will work out just fine. And then we'll stick these in the oven. And honestly, you know, probably 20 minutes. But timing is really entirely up to how you like your vegetables. So if you like them a little bit more al dente, and that's a texture that you can tolerate at that time frame, then you can put them in for a shorter period of time. If you really like that golden crust on them, you might have to leave them in there for an extra 5 to 10. But the timing then is really up to you. And you'll also, of course, find that if you have harder vegetables, like if you do have a little bit of potato or cauliflower, for example, that will also need a little bit more time. Whereas if you have something a little bit more tender, like our broccoli or our bell peppers or our onions, those don't always need quite as long to be in the oven to at least be al dente or that little bit of nice softness to them. So we've got this set to the side. I think our eggs are almost ready to come out. And then we're gonna pop that meat in, and then probably the vegetables at the same time because we can. And then we'll go ahead and take a break, and we'll clean up, and we'll move on to the next set of recipes for you guys. So back in a jiffy.
Okay, everyone. I lost my PowerPoint. Sorry about that. One thing to mention, for those of you watching the recorded version, some of you may be joining now, some of you may do both, watch it now, watch it later. We are going to be sure that if you want the recipe, so you might send someone you know over to St. Luke's YouTube and click on videos and watch this video here in a week or so. And then they'll be like, well, wait, I want the recipes. We just need you to email us or your friend that you send to that, bariatric support at slhs.org. And so that you can, I think I actually have a slide with that address. Maybe I don't. See, that's because I built the slide instead of having Maggie build it for me. So I don't have that email on the screen. But you guys know that email address because you're all our patients or going to be our patients, one or the other. So anyway, let's talk a little bit about some of these black beans, right? We didn't get a chance to talk about those. They're so good for you. They're one of my favorite foods, honestly. They're high in fiber. I know Jen talked about them a little bit. I'm saying black beans because we're going to be doing tacos here in a second. So actually, I think we're doing peanut butter bars first. No tacos. We are doing tacos. Okay, good. Oh, thank you. The timer for the eggs went off, ladies, just so you guys know. Um, anyway, they're super high in antioxidants. They protect us against diabetes, cancer, heart disease. They're just so good for you. So we just really encourage that and know that they are high in carb. But I always tell my patients, you know, just like Jen was saying with the sweet potatoes, you can still have beans, and they're really helpful for people that have issues with constipation, and they're just so good for your gut microbiome. So having them incorporated in your whole foods diet and in a variety of diet is super helpful for you as well. They have different, let's see, they have anti-nutrients that help you, that help, sorry, that are found in black beans, and they can increase the absorption of calcium, iron, and zinc, and things like that. So those are when they're uncooked, they can inhibit that. My apologies. When you cook them, it helps increase the absorption of all of those things. Sorry about that. I I do funny. I have trouble with the word anti and like reading my own notes, and I'm like, wait, that's the opposite. Okay, back to, I think we're heading back to Jen, but a little bit more on the bell peppers that were in the roasted vegetable, awesome, beautiful roasted vegetables there. They're just super high in vitamin C, and this time of year we're indoors more. They're just really great for you to ward off infections. So I'm going to go ahead and turn my PowerPoint off here and send it back to Jen.
All right, what's up, party people? We're ready to move on. So eggs came out of the oven while we were on commercial break. So we put our vegetables and our meat in. I set the timer for 15 minutes because that's how long the meat will need. And then we'll just leave the vegetables in there, you know, an extra 5 to 10 or whenever we're ready to pull those out. Those are a little more flexible with their baking time. So we're going to move on to our little make ahead on the go, cute little mason jar taco salad that we have already put together for you. So I'll be able to show you that and how it works. But first, I'll draw your attention to the recipes. We did include a taco seasoning recipe for you. I know they're out there on the interwebs. I know you can buy it pre-made, which is perfectly fine if that's what you prefer. But we're all kind of in different places and what we can do and what we like to do. So if you prefer to make your own or mix your own, or you're trying to avoid extra fillers and things, decaking agents and all the kind of things that they have to put in some of those, you could go ahead and do something like this. And for the most part, it's typically going to be seasonings that you already have at home, right? So what we have in here is our chili powder, we have our cumin, we got some paprika. I like smoked paprika if you're able to find that, which you can in some stores. And so that's what we use. It's really good, gives a little smokiness to it. Some salt and pepper, of course. And then we have our garlic powder and onion powder and dried oregano. So we put this together, we used it, we pre-cooked our meat so that that was already done for us, just for the sake of the timing of class. Certainly you would be moving on to then putting that together and cooking your meat. And while the meat is cooking, you're chopping the other things, you know, getting it all done. But what I like to do when I'm doing something like this, because I don't like to do it each time, is I will like quadruple this, you know, something like that. And then I'll just throw it all into a jar. And then I just take out a tablespoon at a time to whatever seasoning level that I like in the meat that I'm cooking. So I prefer to do that, or I've been doing that long enough that I'll just pull all the jars out and then I just start shaking. Not everyone, you know, is comfortable doing that, but that's just how I roll. But I think if you wanted to do something like this, if you're already measuring, make it multiple times, put it in a little, you know, jar size kind of like that guy, and then you already have it ready to go. So maybe only every month or so you're making your taco seasoning little mix there. So that's what we included for you. But what we have here is the actual recipe, is the make ahead taco bowl. And really it's a taco jar, right? You've probably seen some of those online. You can go ahead and put this together at home if you want to each time, but if you've already got everything out, you've cooked everything, you might as well just divvy out it into jars or bowls, and then it's just ready to go, right? Then you're not making it each time, you're just pulling it out of the fridge and taking it with you. And what we have here with our jar option is a way for you to grab and go and then just dump it into the bowl whenever you're at work or wherever you're at, or even at home, because that's just what you prefer to do, so you don't have to make it each time. That's perfectly fine. In our taco bowl, we have a combination of course, the lettuce. We have a little bit of lettuce, and if you're able to see in this jar, it's not a ton of lettuce. You know, this could be a bigger jar if you needed it to be, if you're farther along in your process, or it can be a much smaller jar like this. And even for some of you, this might be 2 meals or 3 meals. That's fine. You can get some of the little 4-ounces and do something like that. We've got our chopped lettuce. This is romaine. And then we have our black beans, like Amber was talking about. Black beans, pinto beans, kidney beans, lentils, a mix. All of that's fine, but a little bit of fiber. So there's 2 plant foods already. We've got a little bit of cheese, and that can be up to you. It can be cheddar, it can be Monterey, it can be pepper jack, right? A lot of different options here, but you want to slide that in. And then we've got our taco meat, which we already cooked and seasoned and popped in there. And then near the bottom, here's more of our plant foods. We've got our chopped tomatoes. These are chopped cherry tomatoes. You do a chopped Roma or whatever you prefer. We've got our red onions, but it could be yellow onions, white onions, again, whatever you prefer. And then the dressing here near the bottom is going to be some of our salsa. And we used a Greek yogurt. You could do sour cream. But since we're always trying to think of ways to add in an extra gram or 2 of protein here and there, we use a plain Greek yogurt. It can be fat-free or it can be, you know, a higher fat. It's really up to you. I think when you're using a plain yogurt, having a little bit of fat in it has a nicer mouthfeel, and it tastes a little bit better, and it would mix well with this. So we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 plant foods. No, that's not right. we do have 6 plant foods, but we get to count all of the herbs and spices that are in the taco meat. So how many is that, guys? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So we've actually got 12 plant foods if we don't count the salt and pepper in one taco bowl. That's a ton of variety in one meal. So that's how you want to be thinking about getting your plant foods in, is how can I get variety with a lot of different options, different flavors, and the herbs and spices help you out quite a bit. So we've got our little taco bowl jar right there. And with our little guy, all we need to do is, for the most part, dump it out into our bowls. So we've got our handy dandy little bowl here. Gonna go ahead and give that a little shake, and it's all gonna spill out a little bit. And you're probably gonna want a spoon or a fork or something to pull it out a little bit. There we go. Yeah, that's good. So see, if you assemble them all at the same time, there we go. Now you've got your little taco salad. It's all good to go, right? And this, I did want to mention, oh, actually, you know what? I'm wrong, you guys. We have more than 12 because depending on what other herbs or plant foods are in the salsa, you might have a couple more. So there's probably tomatoes. Yeah, but we already have those. It's probably onions. Well, we already got that, but a different onion maybe. There might be jalapenos in there. There might be cilantro. So you might have some other options. So we might be at 14 or 15 plant foods in one bowl. That's rocking it right there, okay? So if you can get that many plant foods in one meal, you are brilliant. Good job. Okay, so that's what we want to do with that. So that's just another one of our make ahead, easy peasy pre-prep versions. And what we're gonna do now, I think, is, how much time do I have? I think we're gonna look at a commercial break here, kind of get ourselves cleaned up, and we're gonna move on to our last recipe while our meatballs and our vegetables are still cooking. So we'll go ahead and clean up, and then we'll move on to that. And by then our other foods are probably done. And then I think we'll be all done for the day. So let's go ahead and do that. See you in a minute.
Okay, everyone. Awesome, awesome. So fun. We thought we were just being done so early. It's already almost 11:45. So we're going to be just right on time. So this slide I was pretty proud of because I I love to food prep, although it's exhausting sometimes. So you spend all that time, but then bariatric patients, man, you could spend time doing just these recipes today and you'd have food for 2 weeks. So you'll be good. You don't have to do it all the time once you've had your surgery. I mean, those of you that are pre-surgery, it's still good. You just might have a little bit bigger appetite at this point. So storing the food, prepped food. Now we've made a lot of food. And I know those veggies, right? The sweet potato was massive and the zucchini was good, but yeah, we had a little bit, maybe not enough broccoli and maybe a little bit too large of a sweet potato. So you can buy a smaller sweet potato, obviously. But there are a few ways to store food safely. And we don't talk a little bit about food safety, but you got to be really careful right when you store it. You can't just make it and then expect to peel off of it for 2 weeks in your fridge because a lot of it will go bad. So basically, a good idea is to portion it out into baggies or glass, like the glass containers you see on the screen with lids. You can portion them out or you can put them in baggies and label them. I always recommend, and I got these sweet little labels at Amazon. And I'll try to put a picture up on there later, but I mark all my food, the date it is and what it, sometimes I put the title, but if you can see that it's a taco bowl, you don't have to write taco bowl. You're going to see it, put your, the date on it. But having those in there, that way you know the dates and how long it's been in there. Most of the things like the salad bowls would probably be 3 to 5 days. I would say the lettuce could get a little wilted if it's on the 5 to 7 day range. But then if you were to pre-do the taco meat for it, and of course the canned beans are in your pantry or your cupboard, you can always have those. But if you were to prep the meat, then putting together those taco bowls and freezing the meat, excuse me, you can pre-cook it and freeze it. then you can have it for much longer. Now, the other thing that you can do is you can definitely freeze. You can freeze the egg whites. Some of you may not know that, but I've done it. My family, we used to go on this trip every year to a lake, and I like to vacation when I go on vacation. And because I cook all the food for everyone, we had 10 people, it, I pre-did everything and stuck it in a freezer and then put it in a cooler. And on the way there, then just stuck it right in the fridge when we got there. So eggs freeze well. Vegetables, we do not recommend you freeze them when they're raw. You freeze them after you roast them, and they can last for like 3 months. Now, a way that they can last longer is a picture of that food saver there where you can vacuum pack. And the one key on that, and then I'm going to switch it over to Jen, is it's really smart to pre-freeze the food and then put it in your food saver bag. Because if you try to take the air out of food before it's frozen, it'll suck all the air out and it'll squish it. I've tried. I had a little learning curve issue with that one, and trying to freeze bread. That's funny. And it wasn't frozen yet. I just squished it down to a pancake. But anyway, so, and then last thing too is you want to make sure things don't stick together. So let's say you make all the egg bites and you stick them in a freezer bag and put them in the freezer. Well, they would all stick together. So it's really a great idea to stick them on like a cookie sheet in your freezer for overnight and then pop them into a freezer bag. Then they're all it's called individually frozen, right? Then that's when they don't stick to each other. So, okay, I'm going to switch it over to Jen. It looks like we're going to be making the nutty protein bars. Okay.
Okay, people, we are back and we are nearing the end of our food prep session here. And I know like it's only an hour we're spending today, and I had a team of 3 as we were prepping. So this would probably take a couple hours if you were trying to put this all together yourself. Or if you have a partner, you could definitely shrink that time down. So you're kind of tackling different things together at the same time. But because we have things baking, we might as well work on something else, right? Let's get her done. So what we're going to do are some basically nut butter protein bars. And these, as their original format, which is what we're doing today, have some protein, but not a ton. So it's going to feel a little bit more probably like a treat, which is okay as long as we're careful with how we're putting those treats together. These do freeze, so you could make a tray of them and you could freeze portions of them. So you always had something, especially with social engagements or movie night or whatever it is that you're going to or having, and you would like to have something for you, but you don't want to make it every single time. This would be one good option for that, is to make this ahead of time. Freeze it into the little bites. You don't want to freeze it as a whole chunk. You want to cut it up into the little sized pieces that you plan on using, and then freeze those out on a tray separated on parchment paper so you can get them off. And then you can go ahead, you could just freeze them in a baggie at that point or in a container, a freezer safe container. So, so what we've got here is our peanut butter, smooth peanut butter, unsweetened. So that's going to be natural. That's usually the name you're going to see. We're going to do unsweetened on that. And then to add our little bit of sweet, we have some of this. Let me turn this around for you. There we go. This is the Lakanto brand monk fruit maple syrup sweetener. So that's what I'm going to pour in here. And this is, I think, a half cup. What does my recipe say? Yes, half cup of that guy. So that's going to add the sweetness, that maple syrupy kind of a flavor, which I think is good. So we're actually going to soften this. I'm going to pop this into the microwave for about 30 seconds. And we're just going to let that soften for a few seconds in there. It really is just making it easier for you to work with. There's nothing particularly proper about doing that, but it just makes it a little bit easier to stir together. Plus, then we're going to be stirring it into our dry ingredients. We're going to be pressing it into the pan. So if we warm that up, it's a little bit more malleable, as they say. So when that comes out, I'm going to stir those 2 ingredients together. And then Ooh, steamy. And then we'll go ahead and bring our dry ingredients together. And for our dry ingredients, we have a mix of almond flour and coconut flour. If you've ever worked with those, almond flour or some of the other nut flours can be somewhat cup for cup, if you will, as far as substitutions. Coconut flour is not. If you're going to use coconut flour, you need to use a recipe that someone has already tested for you because it absorbs a lot of liquid, much more so than some of your standard flours that you might use or have used in the past. So, you know, don't get too adventurous with coconut flour unless you have a lot of experience with it. So you just want to be a little bit careful there with that. So what I'm going to do here, because I think it will be easier to do it this way, I'm going to go ahead and pour my almond flour and my coconut flour. We've got a half a cup of almond flour, a quarter cup of coconut flour that we're pouring into this. We're going to stir that together and we're going to make our batter, our dough. It's more doughy, I think, really than anything. So pretty simple, right? There's not a lot of ingredients here. Once you have them, you know, you've got them, and so you can use those up. So it might take a minute, you know, just to get it well incorporated. You don't want to over stir, but you do want to get all of that flour mixed in to the peanut butter and our maple syrup sweetener. And now that I'm saying that, I'm just going to hold this bottle of the maple syrup sweetener up a little bit closer. So Lakanto is the brand name for that. They use monk fruit, so they'll have granulated monk fruit. They have golden monk fruit. They make box mixes. So you got options there. But if you like the maple syrup, it's kind of a handy dandy thing to have. And my daughter loves it, which is great. So now what we're going to do is we're going to press. We're going to press this into our little pan. I've got, I think, an 8x8 here. I have lined it with parchment paper. You want to do that, okay? That is going to make it so much easier because then when you're done, all you got to do is lift that out and then you can go ahead and cut it. So pre-lined, ready to go. And then all you got to do is press this in. So a little patience, right? Have a little patience and press this in here. Try and get it as evened out as you can. You know, this one doesn't have to be perfect, but you want to get it fairly even. It really doesn't want to agree with me very much today. Come on, baby. Come on. There we go. So I'm going to smooth it out as best as I can as well. I could use my hands, but I really like the spatula better. You do you. If you want to use your hands, that's cool. I'm not going to. I'm going to get it all flattened out. There we go. Now you could actually leave it just like this if you wanted to. You know, we're going to top it with some sugar-free chocolate. Up to you entirely. You could just go straight up or neat, maybe. That's how you want to think about it. Straight up like this. Easy peasy. But we're going to put some chocolate on top. So this is just a couple cups of some sugar-free chocolate chips that we melted in the microwave. If you're doing that and you've never done that before, don't do a big section all at once, 30 seconds at a time, and then stir in between. That is the best way to do the chocolate in the microwave. And you can also do it on the double boiler, which you can make if you have a pot with water in it and then a metal or glass mixing bowl that you set on top that isn't deep enough to actually touch the water underneath. And then you can turn that on and get that water good and hot and steamy, and then that will start to melt your chocolate as well, which is a great way to do it. But we did the microwave, and so you can certainly do that as well. So I'm going to go ahead and we're just going to spread this over the top. Now, one thing that I would probably do, this is just me, you know, when you get this chocolate all chilled, it's going to be a little hard for the better use of or better choice of words. It's going to be hard. So it can get a little bit firm to cut. So you can do a couple things. When you pull it out, you can turn it upside down so you're cutting through the nut butter portion, and that's going to feel a little bit easier instead of trying to break through that chocolate topping every single time. Because I've done enough things with chocolate because I like it, I would probably get a little bit of a ganache vibe going with this. I would probably add one, or with a little bit of experimentation, maybe 2 tablespoons of some cream and stir that into the warmed or melted chocolate. And then it's going to spread nice, but then when it firms up, it's going to firm but have a little bit more of some give to it. And so it's easier to cut through that way, a little bit easier to bite through because it's not so crunchy. It's going to be a little bit more soft. So what you want to do then, pop this into your refrigerator, let that go for a good half an hour. You can pop it in the freezer too if you want to, but you do want to chill it before you cut it. So at least a good half an hour. So a little bit of a work ahead time on this guy. So I think we're done with everything. We've got almost everything sitting out. Shirley is working her beautification magic. So we're going to go ahead and go to a quick commercial break. We're going to pull everything out and we're going to showcase what it looks like here at the end so that you can see what you get to make when you do it at home.
Okay, everyone, our final break of the day. A couple people had some great questions. Some people came late. We're wondering about our video, so I wanted to address that. I put some links in there, St. Luke's YouTube, and just you'll go there and you'll see all kinds of updated things on the feed. But if you click on videos, you can scroll through, and usually we're pretty much on the top list, on the top part of the videos, you can see October, November, December, and if there's any and then if there's any classes that you want to, like recipes you want to go back, maybe you missed some of those, we're happy to give you those recipes. We still have all of them, so that's awesome. But yeah, we're just putting together everything. Hopefully you guys all had a great week, and I'm just so happy that the roads are getting better. I wish we could scrape some of the side roads a little better. I don't know where you're all tuning in from, but I'm pretty sure it's everywhere. I'm pretty sure it's everywhere. So I'm very grateful. The talking of food, this happens every time we're talking about food, and it's making me hungry, right? Someone said that. Oh, that might have been on a different chat. I'm sorry. I thought it was on your guys' chat. It smells really good. So, and it's all really good. We actually give samples to some of the staff that work in the main level at the Children's Hospital because we have so much, right? We take some of it home, but we have a lot. So we like to share. Anyway, all right. It looks like we have everything set out and we're so excited to go back. So let me just turn off the PowerPoint and switch on over.
All right. So we are at the end, right? We have 3 minutes left. I think we're going to make it. What we have here first, of course, are our little to-go egg bites, and these are super fun and cute, right? Just because I had a little heart one, so good for your heart, right? All the vegetables and the eggs in there. So these are fun, and again, you can just go ahead and chill those or individually wrap those and freeze those, however you want to do that. We have our little meatball bites right here. Mini meatloaf, whatever we're calling it, it's meat. So there we are. And we went ahead and paired it with our roasted vegetables there. And so we've got this nice little looking plate with multiple plant foods all mixed in, both of those. Thank you very much, Shirley. Look at that. That's like you got it at a restaurant. Looks really good. We have our mason jar taco salad. You got all your different layers there, right? Pour that into your bowl, you're good to go. And then to finish off the day or the meal, or as a special treat, we have our cute little peanut butter, nutty butter bars with some little fruit on the side there if you like. So these are the kind of thing that you could probably bring to any party and anyone's gonna like it. So they're not gonna know it's good for them, right? Low sugar, all of that. All right, you guys, we made it. Food prep day is done. Are there any questions or other comments that we want to make sure we address before we go, or are we good to go? Because I'm hungry, y'all. I was already licking the chocolate spoon over there. I'm ready to have some eggs and some meatball bites. We good?
Good.
All right. Okay, you guys, see you next time. Join us again. Make sure that you sign up for any of the other classes you want to be in. Happy Friday. We'll see you next time. Bye. Toodles.
As we say goodbye, I have a couple announcements. Just make sure you sign up for the virtual support group is on Valentine's Day from 5 to 6, and also our next cooking class. Our next healthy living series will be in March, and that is every Tuesday from about 11:30 to 12. And I forgot the topic, but it's going to be awesome. So we love to have you at all of our classes if you can make it. And again, if you can't make it, but you want to sign up for these cooking classes, you'll still get the recipes and be able to watch the video and cook everything. So it'll be awesome. All right. Thank you all for coming. Stay safe out there.